All right, we are live. Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the TRU-U podcast. This is the 43rd episode. All right, it's flying. Today we have Mr. Dan Gjerseth and Katherine Lillie on with us. Dan is the owner of Gjerseth Realty Group out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and they are on track to building one of the largest real estate teams in the country. And he attributes his growth to partnering with talented people like Katherine. And she is a buyer's agent, and she excels in that space. And she says that building a talented and committed team starts with a focus on growth, support, and servant leadership. Thank you guys for hopping on and joining us for the show here. Dan, this is actually your second time, so thanks for reappearing on the show.
Thanks for having us back.
Yeah,
it's exciting. So
appreciate it.
Having me for the first time.
Yeah, first time here. Have you been on a podcast before?
Decent amount of Facebook Lives, but no podcasts.
Oh, Facebook Live's good. Yeah, it's fun just getting stuff out there to the world. And I know that you guys got some good stuff to talk about. Our first podcast, I think we talked a lot about mindset, a lot about plugging in and just the growth that comes with in your journey. We talked about your journey in real estate, which is exciting. And that's actually how we met. We were dinking around with some ideas prior to the call today, what we wanted to hit on. And I love in your bio, you hit right on leadership. And leadership is a space we've talked about it on the podcast, but we haven't dove into it. And I'm interested in hearing about what that leadership is like for you guys. And Katherine, you use the word servant leadership in your bio. So I'm curious if we lead off with that, what your guys' experience with servant leadership is.
Well, I first learned about servant leadership my last job, and it just kind of clicked so much to me to kind of put a definition to how I was leading people and what just made the most sense for me. And then transitioning not simply to real estate, but with Dan, I mean, it is exactly the same thing. Servant leadership is exactly, I guess, the style that he leads, and that's what resonates with me so much. And it just kind of is second nature to two of us, but is different than how a lot of other places will lead. And so I guess kind of to define it, traditional leadership is more so like I'm going after this title, or it's all about me, or kind of you have the CEO and then you go down from there. Whereas servant leadership kind of flips that. So it isn't I'm looking for this job title, it's I'm here to help serve others. And so everyone else that works with me, what can I do to support them, and how can I listen to them and understand and build the success for them? And so that's something that Dan and I both, I think, really believe in, and that's how we're going to build this awesome team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't really even know what the definition of servant leadership was. And I guess it's just, when I read it, I was like, oh, that's actually what we do. And I guess I've grown from watching successful teams and probably more so importantly, being on teams that might not have been as productive as other ones. And the ones that I learned the most were actually the teams where the environment was just kind of nasty. And I realized that oftentimes when a team didn't produce or didn't have a high level of success, it was very, very common where the leaders were trying to lead because of their job title, or the common thing I heard was, you need to listen to me because I'm your boss. And I just, being under somebody like that just pisses you off and makes you not want to work for them, right? So that's the biggest thing for me. And one of the best work environments I've been in, just what Katherine said before, it was the roles were flipped, and the leader of the business they viewed themselves, and they actually told us that, hey, I'm actually here to make you guys successful. Mm-hmm. It's not you're here to make me successful. It's I'm here to make you guys successful. And in that situation, it made me want to work for that person even harder. And their success elevated because their main focus was making those people on their team successful. So that's the same thing. Same thing I focus on doing is anybody who is on our team, I don't look at them as my employee I just don't look at them that way. I look at them as, okay, how can we make sure you are hitting your personal goals, your business goals, your health goals, all this stuff, anything that's important to that person. How do we help them achieve that? Because work is such a big thing in somebody's life, and it affects every other aspect of life, of your well-being. So
that's interesting that you hit on those other areas. That's actually where my train of thought was going to, is where do we open up that communication? How do we bridge that? Because I feel like it isn't a very popular form of leadership. It's beautiful. I think it's very valuable to do it. But I mean, most people you see, it is that top-down thing. I'm your boss, listen to me sort of thing. And I mean, you kind of hit on it right there, opening up the communication. But how do you hold that space, or like, how do you guys keep that environment alive and thriving of servant leadership? Is there effective forms of communication or anything that goes into that?
I guess for me, it's just being genuine and consistent with that, because well, you could say you could do, or if you really are a genuine servant leader, you don't have to work to be a servant leader. It's just how you operate, and then I guess going along with that would be hiring or bringing on the right people onto your team, so that it's never a situation where you have to be, how do I even say that? I don't really know. Just bring the right people onto your team the first time, and don't waste your time, and be very picky with who you bring on your team. I'm super picky. So
that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing that you're picky. I mean, in your space, it's like you just finding the right people is so critical when it comes to building a team and filtering through those people. And one of the questions that we talked about, you're segueing right into it, is how do you find the right people that are in alignment with that, with your company values? Is there a process or a way of being and getting into that?
I'd actually like to have Katherine speak on that, because she's the one who was actually attracted to working with me and our team here. So I'd actually like to hear what Katherine had to say on that topic. And then I'll kind of loop around and talk about my perspective on it as well.
Yeah. I think it's super important to understand what people's goals are. And so maybe that's the initial interview process. If that's going to be, the typical cookie cutter interview or something completely different, but it's really understanding what people's goals are. And if they match up with yours, I mean, major sign. Or if, just the way that the interview happens, it really tends to be more of a conversation. And that initial, hey, you are interested in real estate, or hey, I think you would be really great at this position. Let's talk about it. It is more of a conversation than answering interview questions or, that type of stuff. It also is just kind of digging into and observing, because if I've known Dan for such a long time, if I had observed stuff that was just like completely different than what I either believe in or the environment that I want at work, why would I spend time even trying to understand what being in real estate would be like?
Mm-hmm. Observing. Oh, go for it, Dan.
So we're kind of looping back around with what she said. For what we're trying to do, you open up with we're on track, and our goal is to become not one of the largest real estate teams in the Chippewa Valley here, but one of the largest companies in the whole nation. So for my perspective is I need to attract people they want endless opportunities. They want growth. They want a environment that is not necessarily stressful, but a good type of stress of, okay, this is going to be challenging every day. And Katherine happens to be the perfect person that actually likes the constant movement, the constant change, the constant good stress of, hey, every day we come to work, it's a new thing, and we might have to pivot on a dime. quickly to stay competitive.
Well, I think there's also a difference between high stress and fast paced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
High stress is like running
Tell
around
me about
like
that.
well, yeah, high stress, running around chicken with your head cut off. That's what I imagine. Fast paced is like Dan said, it's enjoyable. It's, hey, maybe we have to pivot on a dime, or this thing just popped up that wasn't even on my radar 2 minutes ago, and now all my focus is on that. You know, whatever the situation is, it's more of the enjoyable. I see this challenge that I want to overcome or that I want to get better at.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that Lily in the background, Dan? Oh, we got another one. The Lily was a cute puppy. I think we talked about that on the first podcast. We got another one though.
Yeah, her name is Daisy. Her last name is
Daisy.
Lily.
Daisy. Lily. She's Lily. Daisy. Jeez. Daisy's the dog. I don't know you well enough. Yeah, there's Lily. She's growing up. She's got a good bark on her.
Yeah, she does.
So sorry about that. That's funny. So I like the fast pace versus high stress, and it like fast pace. It occurs to me like that's when you're in a flow state. That's when you just got it figured. You know why you're there, and you feel like there's value of you being there, and you're adaptable in that space. I think high stress is when you don't have a good relationship to what's going on, right? You're not too sure what the point of it is, and maybe conflicted. But if we rewind a little bit, Catherine, you said something observing, and that I thought that was, I mean, it's a simple word, but just being open and almost having that golden eye and golden ear for the right people, but just really being attentive and observing people around you. I feel like that's just from my experience, big, and intuition plays a big role too. When you don't know people very well, your gut can lead you down certain paths. How do you open yourself up to be effective in observing? Is it just from repetition, or is there things that you look for, things that you see in people? How does that look?
I think it has a lot to do with being connected to your priorities and why you're doing what you're doing. If I was like, yeah, I'm here to make a lot of money and work part-time and it'll be fantastic, I'm not, then those are the types of people that I'm going to attract. If I am connected to why I'm here, it's to make huge impacts in people's lives and back to that servant leadership thing, to find people to join our team that are exactly the same as Dan and I. If I'm not focused on those things, I'm not going to attract those types of people. So being connected to why you're doing what you're doing, really sticking with those priorities is a big thing for me.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
I would say, what was the original question again? It had to do with how do you keep
observing people and like just getting almost that connection to people, and like what you look for, how you effectively attract people.
So for me, it's being very intentional with the people that I surround myself with. And so, because that is one of the biggest things that are going to either sink you or make you soar, is the people you surround yourself with, you become. And being very intentional with the people that I bring on, that I surround myself with, I spend my time with, I hang out with on the weekends, everything, all just intentionality with who you want to surround yourself with, and the right people will be attracted into your life, because you give off that energy, and you are going to attract those same people into your life.
Yep.
So for me, it's just, I want to surround myself with high achievers, people who want to live a life that they really don't have regrets at the end of their life, and they're willing to take those chances because they realize you only live one time. It doesn't make sense to sit in the sidelines and let life happen to you. I want to intentionally surround myself with other people that are intentional. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes complete sense.
I really like that.
I think of just networking in general right now. That's kind of what's coming to my mind, and just getting out there and getting getting to, I mean, do you guys network I'm sure in real estate, you guys get out and shake plenty of hands. How big of a role is networking in everything that you guys do?
I'm laser focused on networking with the people that I need to network with and giving them value. It's just the servant leadership. It comes back to that servant leadership aspect of, I don't expect anything from somebody. I never expect anything, but I will give it my all for that person. And the right people will, I guess for me, I network and I give value to the people that I need to cultivate and help. Mm-hmm. And in return, I have a good relationship with those people. Mm-hmm. And everything it all works itself out in the end.
Right. I see it more so as just the goal is building a relationship with someone, not necessarily shaking as many hands as possible.
Yeah.
Obviously there's power in numbers, but if I just shake the hand and give a business card to every single person in the room, what's the value that I'm adding to their life? Almost nothing.
Yeah. I think the purpose of shaking, because I like that concept of, because I shake a lot of hands. I'm constantly out there talking to people, networking with people, but the only reason I'm doing that is to find that diamond in the rough, to bring into my inner circle of people that I should surround myself with on a daily basis. And once I find that person, right now I probably have about 15 to 20 people. Mm-hmm. Out of all the thousands of handshakes I've had in my life, all the thousands of people I've talked to, I probably have 15 to 20 people in my life that I am very intentionally giving value to, mm-hmm. On multiple times a week.
Mm-hmm. I love, you said you give, but you don't expect anything back, Dan. That was interesting to me. And I'm wondering, like, what does that do for you? Is that freeing? I mean, and I feel like oftentimes people will go in with an intention and be like, I got to get this back, or expect things. And that I don't think always serves people. So I was just curious what your take is on that part.
Well, I think 95% of businesses fail. And I think that's why 95% of businesses fail, is because people always give and they always expect in return. Whereas if you just give, you give a shit ton, mm-hmm. all an income is, or making a living, is a byproduct of your value that you give off to society. And if you never expect anything in return, and if you focus on getting, you're not going to get very, very far. If you focus on giving off the value and radiating that value to society, the income and people being attracted to working for you or working with you is just a byproduct of the value that you give off to the world.
Yep.
That makes me think of being a servant leadership in society, not just your business. When you say that, like you're out, like now you're expressing that in a more worldly view. That's powerful. I mean, thinking about the impact that you can make just by seeking to give. Yeah, that's incredible. And that, well, we had a couple of other areas that we talked about prior to hopping on too, and I'm wondering how that could segue into this, because I think that the more you give, the more you get concept, and focusing on giving is very powerful. And inside of your business, how do you see that? Like, does that create, like, when you're in that, I think is part of being a servant leader, but we also saw in your bio the synergistic piece, creating synergy in the workplace. How does that play into that internally?
Yeah, that is actually honestly like one of my favorite topics right now, because bringing Katherine on has been one of the more biggest things I've ever done personally, is bringing another team member onto the team. And it's just been from my perspective, I'm not sure what Katherine thinks, but from my perspective, it's been going really, 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 really well. And most agents, when they get into the real estate business, they're all pumped up, they get into the business, and then they never get off the ground, and they boom right to the bottom. Mm-hmm. And it's such a grind. And I was there myself a few years ago, actually not that long ago, because I was able to scale up pretty quickly. But I was there. I know the struggle. And from my perspective, I want to provide a platform so that people don't go through that. About a year and a half, 2 years of my life, I had mental breakdowns like at least 3 times a week. And I'm not going to lie, I bawled my eyes out a couple times because I was freaking stressed out and I wasn't able to pay rent. I wasn't being able to pay for groceries. And I'm like, all right, how can I create a system so that when people, first of all, we attract the right people to our team, and that never happens. They're up and running. We have a process, a system, and the training support that's going to allow somebody to go from zero knowledge to being one of the top in the industry within a 6-month period instead of a 3-year period.
Yep.
Mm.
Now at least when Dan balls his eyes out, he's got someone to talk to.
Yeah. So, yeah. Now when I cry on Catherine's shoulder. It's so much better than before.
Yeah, we can all cry together now. That's good.
Yeah. So that's really I don't even remember the initial question. Oh, the synergy.
Yeah.
So now. So from the other side, because obviously we brought Katherine on for a reason. The reason why we hired Katherine is we had so much business coming to my office that we just simply couldn't. I couldn't service everybody. And Katherine came on and immediately had 40 to 60 hours worth of work, just like that. And that's work that I couldn't do myself because I was already working 50 to 60, 70-hour work weeks. And I had an extra 50 to 70-hour work worth of work sitting there that I couldn't service because I just didn't have the band. I don't have the support.
Mm-hmm.
So now bringing Katherine onto the team, and she's super focused with working with buyers, and not only working with buyers, but also building out systems so we can help other agents get into the business and be successful right away too, just like she has been. That is my definition of a synergistic relationship, from the aspect of Katherine is getting exactly the type of work that she wants. She's feeling good about it. She's able to grow her side of the business, and I'm able to focus on what I need to focus on in my day-to-day. In return, what I'm focusing on helps Katherine grow, and what she focuses on helps me grow. And anybody who joined their team, the exact same thing. The more people we have on our team, the more baller we're going to be.
Yep.
The way I look at it.
Yeah, the word system stands out to me too. We used to use that as an acronym for save yourself time, energy, and money when we talked about it in the past. And it's like, I actually had a conversation recently with somebody about what areas am I not seeing right now that I can build systems in my life. And I think, especially in the workplace, it's valuable to look for those. Now I'm curious, what leads you guys to this requires a system, or how do you discover that, and how do you build off of that?
I've got that one. If I need to do something, or if I don't have time to do something, I need someone else to do it.
Yeah.
If we don't know how to do it, we need a system for it. So if I need someone to go, let's just, for example, do a showing, they don't know how to do that showing, then what's the system for them to learn how to do that? And so I guess it kind of comes back to training, and then the servant leadership of support. It's just this full circle moment, I guess. But if someone needs to learn how to do something, or we need to teach someone how to do it, what's our system for teaching them? And maybe it's, maybe all it needs is a quick explanation of this is what's important in a showing, but maybe it is a step-by-step. I mean, systems can be so different depending on the task or what you're talking about. So for me, it's always just, does someone need to be trained on this? Okay, what's our system for training them?
Yeah, that's nice. In tweaking it, I feel like too, when you get ideas like we use the term shitty first draft in our work and that can go towards systems or really anything, but I love that you do that. It's like it occurs to you as like, okay, we got a stump in the road here, we just hit something. Now that's a sign that we need to start thinking about how we can provide value or a system to it.
every time I have an issue or there's something that arises, we immediately get together with our admin staff and say, what do we need to do so that this never happens again?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a self-learning computer system. It's like, that's how I look at it. You know, the more errors we have, the more errors we have to correct. And every time we correct the error, our system works better.
Yep.
And so it's just a never-ending evolving. As we add more team members, we're going to have more errors, and those errors over time are just fixed. And when we fix the errors, it allows for quicker growth.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you set yourself up here, Dan. The last question is, how do you hold a space for growth in your business? And that's one that we talked about. I think the questions there, like, how do we prevent this from ever happening again? That gets you in a train of thought that really opens up your mind maybe to things that you haven't thought of before. And I think powerful questions is a big piece of the growth. But, you know, how do questions play a role? How to assist? I mean, all of what we're talking about, I feel like plays a role into growth in your business. But what else comes to mind if you speak on like just the growth and people in your business?
How do you hold a space for people to grow in your business?
Yeah.
Is that saying like a path, basically a path for Katherine's growth within the business, or is that saying like a coaching aspect of helping people grow personally?
I think both. Yeah, we can talk about both. Yeah, whatever's striking. I think that if you allow them to grow as a person, it's going to benefit you and your business either way in the long run. And you kind of touched on that with servant leadership too, but yeah, just as an entirety. Yeah.
One thing that I think about is we did this course together with our admins. Maybe Dan remembers the exact name of the course, but it essentially talks about, okay, if we want to grow this team, we want, you know, whether we have certain goals that we want to hit, or there's certain activities that we know we have to do consistently, you know, whatever my goals are as an individual, match up with the goals of, no, I'm saying that backwards. The goals of the company or the business align with the goals of the individual. So for example, if my goal is to do 30 transactions this year, how can the company, I mean, servant leadership again, how can the company help me do that? And then that goal builds into what the company's goal is. So maybe the goal is 90 transactions for the company, my 30 builds into that. And that's just one example of how it can just snowball and snowball and snowball into any aspect of your life.
Yeah, and I love that type of coaching because now everybody holds each other accountable to their goals. Because now it's a viral goal is what the term that they used was. Okay, if your goal is 30, my goal is 60, that means the company goal is 90. It just doesn't make any sense to have it any other number, because why would I say, no, your goal shouldn't be 30, it should be 50? Well, maybe that's me expanding her thinking or expanding goals to maybe push somebody. But at the end of the day, if we have a conversation around, okay, what's realistic? What's a good number for you? And we, at the end of the day, come up with 30 would be a good number. That's her chunk of the portion of the company goal, basically. So that's how we all hold each other accountable to what individual goals are equate to the company goal. Another thing we do oftentimes is on a more day-to-day operations standpoint is we focus on the 20-80 principle. And I look at everything from the 20-80 principle. If something isn't in my 20%, I don't want it on my calendar. And basically I have to find time to do those things between my 20% activities, because there are, obviously you have to do some 80% activities. There's no way to completely offboard everything, because they'll all be arising. And most of the time when I consistently have to do an 80% activity, I'm looking for a way to outsource it to another individual or a system that can be just automated, right?
I'm following you, but for context for the people here, can you share what the 80-20 rule is for you?
Yeah, so 80% of your results are created by 20% of your activities, and vice versa. 20% of your results are a aftermath of 80% of your activities. So what we always want to do is focus on our 20%, because our 20% activities are what's going to get us the most results for the shortest amount of time. So I'm constantly focusing on that. What's my 20%? Thinking about, okay, what is a 20% activity? That's something I'm going to do. This podcast is a 20% activity. Why is it a 20% activity? Because there might be somebody out there who is wondering who I am, what our team is, and they look at this and they say, I want to be a part of that. So from my perspective, being on this podcast, if it wasn't part of my if I didn't think it was one of my 20% activities, I wouldn't agree to be on the podcast. I think it is.
Yep.
Because it puts us out there, and it gets people to know who we are and what we stand for, and attracts people. So that's an example of my 20% activity. An example of my 80% activity would be data input, right? Okay, does it make sense for me to spend 2 hours on data input? No, it doesn't, especially if it's a recurring thing. So we have an admin staff every day. That's what they do. They input data. They get my certain things up and running, so that when I come into work, I can focus on my 20% activities effectively. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. That's leadership right there, and realizing those things, and being honest with yourself. What is the best use of my time, and are these in alignment with my vision? Right.
And then going a little further on that, we coach that as well for our team. I'm asking Katherine, what is your 20% activities? Once 20% activities get pushed, all of a sudden we want to start off outsourcing certain, even things that might be 20% activities now might get outsourced because time constraints. We say, okay, out of all these activities here, if you're overworking yourself, what can we outsource to somebody else to be able to make sure you're laser focus on the things that are going to get the highest results for the shortest amount of period.
Yep. I love all of that. Well, we're about to land the plane here in a few minutes. So all this was great. Yeah, my silly analogies. But all this has been awesome. The servant leadership piece, I really like how we hit on that. I know you've been on once before, Dan, but where can people find you guys at? I know you're out of Eau Claire. You guys got your pages up. And to just tell us a little bit about Gjerseth Realty as a whole, and where we can find you guys at here.
Yeah, you guys can Google us. And I think my name should be on this podcast somewhere. Last name is a little bit weird, but Gjerseth Realty Group. Either Google us or Facebook us, or you can find my number on either one of those platforms. And just so people understand, like, our structure, I'm the listing side of the business. So when we get a listing, I'm the one who is managing that whole transaction, and Katherine is on the buyer side. So Katherine is she's going to be the lead buyer agent. So she's going to be the one that is actually handling the whole buyer transaction. And we have staff that helps us all the back end stuff. And then also we'll be hiring other buyer agents too. So yeah, is that
yeah. So Gjerseth Realty Group, and that's on IG, Facebook, Google. Gjerseth Realty, beautiful. Because we're gonna hunt you guys down, and we always end it with a broad message to the TRU-U audience. I'll ask each of you. I mean, it can be based off of anything we talked about, or life, or value, whatever is occurring to you as a message you'd like to leave the audience with. So we'll leave that with you guys.
I think Katherine needs to leave the final remarks here.
Okay. Ladies first, he says. There you
go. I guess if anyone who's listening has found any value to what we're talking about, just reach out, because maybe we're a real estate team, but the goal isn't just to help people buy and sell houses. We want to add value to every aspect of your life. And so anyone who's just thinking, hey, I don't necessarily like how this is going for me, or I don't necessarily like this clock in, clock out, or, I'm not talking about jobs. I'm just talking about life in general. If there's something you're not happy with, what can you do to change it? Where do you want to be in 20 years? What's the first thing you need to do to change it? And if you want someone to brainstorm with, get a hold of us.
Yeah.
Thank you, Catherine. Dan the man, got a message for the TRU-U audience here.
I liked what Catherine said there, and we didn't really talk too much about it, but having long-term goals and thinking about them every week or maybe even every day are essential to be able to know what you need to be doing right now, because that's a big aspect of what I do, is thinking long-term and saying, okay, if my 5-year goal is this, where do I need to be 12 months from now? Where do I need to be a month from now? And what do I need to be doing literally in the next 5 minutes here?
Yep. And
I am 13 minutes from now, we're doing one of those things that is literally setting us up for 5-year growth. And I think this podcast is setting us up for a 5-year growth too, and just being really intentional with what you're doing with your time right now. Are you browsing Facebook? I don't think browsing Facebook and looking at silly memes are really going to add up to a 5-year goal, and everybody does it. I catch myself doing it too, but being intentional with your time, setting your phone down if you have to, and focus on those key activities to make sure they compound over time to get you to your end goal is essential. So, yeah.
Live in the 20%, right?
Yes.
Live in the 20%.
Live in it.
Live in that. Well, this has been awesome, guys. Thank you for hopping on. Catherine, thank you for the first time. Dan, thank you for the second. Looking forward to talking with you guys more in the future, and I'm sure the audience got some good nuggets from this one. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. See you later.